I gotta have some cool, like, music, like at the beginning, like or something like that. No? All right. Hi, my name is David Faro, and this is my podcast called 1989, where I interview really interesting people who I also happen to go to high school with. And today I'm interviewing Landis Wyatt and her husband, Kent Bubbs Jr. of Universal Outreach Foundation. And over the last 15 years, what these two have done together with teams of other people is that they've applied local solutions to local challenges. And they've been able to increase access to education. They've been able to create opportunities that support sustainable progress. And they've created really impactful connections that have aided economic development to a great deal in Liberia. Now, I've known Landis for decades. We went to high school together, and we were friends throughout our high school experiences, often getting into a bit of trouble in one way or another. But what I remember Landis and I sharing was a taste for adventure. For example, one day in our senior year, we decided to take the whole day off from school and have a Ferris Bueller day off type experience. We drove to Moose Jaw. We visited the animal park. We talked with the lion. It's a great memory. And when Landis and I graduated, we both headed into the mountains and continued to live lives of adventure. For Landis, that life never ended, and she never ended up as a bald, middle-aged white guy like I did. Instead, Landis and her husband, Kent, who still has his hair, moved to Liberia and started Universal Outreach Foundation. And they created a nationwide honey industry. Now they're focusing on coastal economic development strategies, and they're centering these strategies around hospitality, education, and surf tourism. And this, whether you know me, whether you know Landis, whether you know Kent, this is a really interesting 30-minute interview where we find out the story of two global change makers, right? How they did it, how they started, and where they're going. So with no further explanation, let me introduce you to Universal Outreach Foundation, Landis Wyatt, Kent Bubbs Jr., and you can sit in on my conversation with an old high school friend, and you too can hear about what they do and about the life they have built. How did the two of you come to be sitting in chairs next to each other, doing what you've done? And we'll get to what you've done, but how did the two of you meet?
I'll take that. That's my favorite story. So Kent and I met. I'm going to start it with Kent and I met in an avalanche course. I'm not going to go back further than that, but he was actually teaching an avalanche course that I took. And I was admiring him from a distance and thought he was pretty cute. And then one day I passed by him as he was checking our beacons, and he leaned over and whispered in my ear, and I thought, oh yeah, he's finally noticed me. He said, you have your skis on the wrong feet. So he did notice me, but it wasn't in the way I was hoping anyways. Needless to say, after that, we hooked up and we got together and did a few ice climbs together and a little indoor gym climbing. And we started our life of adventure. Yeah, that was, many moons ago, feels like.
So nothing really prepares you for Liberia better than avalanche and ice training, right? I'm assuming those go hand in hand. So, with that as a segue, there you are, obviously in a place where there's a lot of ice, a lot of snow, mountainous. Ken, if you're teaching classes, that means that's a big part of your life. Liberia, where did Liberia originate? How did the two of you go, yeah, let's go Liberia?
Yeah, good question. Basically, after we met, not too long after that, I was a mountain guide before that, a winter guide, and I had decided that I didn't want to pursue that career anymore. And so talked to Landis about it, and we kind of at that point decided to go on the hunt for a new place to live. We were living in between Whistler and Canmore at the time, and we discovered Smithers. So we went up to Smithers one Christmas to visit some friends and left with a house. So it was a bit of a spur of the moment purchase, and moved up there. Absolutely loved it. Center of the universe. Smithers to us is just like, it was a magical place. We had a magical place to live. But at the same time, without the guiding, seemed to need some more adventure. I'm a builder as well. So I was just building houses and things like that. And so my mom and dad started Universal Outreach, and they had been working in Honduras, and those projects were slowing down. So I had an opportunity to go to East Africa in 2006 with a friend who was working with Food for the Hungry. And we went to Burundi, Rwanda, Congo, and Uganda, and kind of we're just looking around at projects, came across a few interesting ideas, at that time, we also had a family friend who had worked in Liberia back in the 50s. And he said, hey, why don't you go and check out Liberia while you're in Africa, right? Check the map before you agree to do these things, because East Africa to West Africa is a heck of a long way away. So, but being naive, I didn't. And so I agreed to do that and ended up leaving that group in East Africa, going to Liberia, spending some time there, looking at opportunities to partner, to just to see where we could help if there was space. Came home from that trip and got a phone call from the friend we were visiting there, and he said, hey, can you come and build me a school? And being in the building industry, Landis and I agreed, and we started the journey in Liberia that turned into 2 schools, that turned into a well restoration program, that turned into economic development programs, all sorts of stuff. So
that's awesome. So one clarifying question I have, you very quickly said, I came home, Landis agreed.
Oh, you want the details there?
Well, we don't have to get into too much details, but Landis, I would say I've known you a long time. We grew up in Saskatchewan together. I think that we grew up with a taste of adventure, hence you going to the mountains. You and I have a mountain background. And so adventure has definitely been on your plate since I've known you. But hey, Landis, can you go to the grocery store, get milk, and can we go to Liberia? What was your reaction to that brief?
Well, I looked up Liberia on the map because I wasn't sure where it was. Even when I went to get vaccinated, they tried to vaccinate me for Libya because they had never really heard of Liberia either. So yeah, so I looked up a map, I saw where it was, and it was close to the equator. And then I said to Kent, well, is it very hot there? And he said, not really. I'm like, okay, I can go check it out. And
so Kent glosses over details is what I'm learning. Yeah. It's not a challenge. Yeah, so keep going.
So I definitely resisted the idea at first, but then I thought, life is short. Why not? Like, give it a chance. It's only for a year.
So that was part of the deal too. It was going to be a short time. I've made deals like that, Kent. I understand that. So that's a great segue to this question. It was only a year. So Kent counts years and 15-year periods for the rest of us. I mean, it's 15 years later. What happened that kept you there for 15 years?
Yeah, that's great.
Both of you, I'm interested as a person who was brought there, what kept you there?
So, it was interesting. We went over for that 1 year to build a school, and we thought that was possible. And what we quickly learned was that was impossible. We had a container. We brought a truck over in a container because to transport materials, there wasn't even many trucks available for that. Yeah. Liberia was in such a state of disarray because it had just been a few years since it had ended a 14-year civil war. So, our truck didn't even arrive for 6 months. Securing the property that we were building on, there was a bunch of hoops to jump through for that. So things just don't move that quickly. And so the building project of the school ended up taking 3 years. But while we were there building the school, people kept on coming to us and asking for jobs. And you realize that building a school is a great thing. Kids will be able to come and get educated. But if their parents are really poor and their parents can't afford to send them to school, then there's no point in building schools. So that's when we started looking around for other things that we could do to help parents earn money. And then that's when we really jumped into a variety of things. But one of the most fascinating things for us was that started us on our journey into training beekeepers.
It was a totally different century, man.